Here's a quick visual example of how negative emotions from the past can affect our present and our future negatively as well, if we don't learn to release the negative emotions from the past. I want you to imagine for a second that this line represents time. And this is the past, and this is the present. Now, just for example's sake, I want you to imagine that in the beginning of your life, you had something happen. Let's say as a baby, something made you cry. And that thing that made you cry was very long ago. You won't remember what it was, but during that time, let's say it was age 2. During this time, something happened that would have made you feel angry. And let's just say that the anger was small. Okay, so this little drip of fluid represents the feeling of anger. And it's just this small, okay? This is actually soy sauce that I'm using for the example. Now, let's say this person does not resolve those negative emotions. And how could they know? They're 2 years old in this example. Now, let's say something different happens. Let's say in this example, it's something very different. So the shape of something different. And let's say this was an argument with a friend and it created anger as well. It was a similar feeling of anger, but it was very small. A very small experience of feeling anger. Just like what you can see here. Barely any anger in this cup. Well, if this continues throughout life, let's just say that this is 5 years old and this is a bigger problem that happens and it creates a bigger feeling of anger, let's just say. And this one is not resolved. And let's say there's another thing that happens at 10 years old, a different situation. That's why it's a different kind of cup. And again, a similar feeling of anger happens and it's not resolved. Well, we can continue this example throughout life and have different problems come up. And just like all the other past problems, a small amount of anger is experienced, but they are not resolved. Now, it's interesting because sometimes when we look back on these past experiences, sometimes we can remember in the moment. Like, oh, I remember this time when I was young, when I was 10 years old, let's pretend, and I remember that there was some anger here. Or let's say at 12 years old, this happened, but I don't remember feeling angry. But during the time, during that experience, anger was present. When these negative emotions are not resolved, so they are not healed, or a person does not learn how to completely let the negative anger go, what will happen is in the present time, if a situation occurs, if a situation happens where they end up feeling triggered and the negative feeling again is anger, then what they should experience, if it's a small amount of anger, is they should experience this. So this could be something like driving down the street and somebody cuts you off on the road. That triggers a lot of people to feel angry. Or let's say this is a conversation and somebody says a word that would make you feel angry, or uses a certain tone of voice that makes you feel angry. Or the children don't do something that you dislike. They don't do their homework. They forget to do the dishes. Something. And it triggers this feeling of angry. Well, if it's just that situation and it's just that negative angry from the situation, this is how much anger should appear. This is how much anger should show up in that present moment. However, if this anger is similar to the feeling of this anger and this one and this one and this one and this one and this one, all the way back to 2 years old, what happens is this. Emotions, both positive and negative, do not separate. It's what we call stacked emotions, where emotion that's similar to each other will stack on top of one another. So if a person is here in their present time and something triggers their anger feeling, but it's very similar to all the way back to here, then this is what happens. This feeling of anger is stacked onto this one. This one is stacked onto this one. This one is stacked on to this one. And this one is stacked onto this one. And so on and so forth. So what ends up happening as a result is if a person is angry here, and this is how much anger they should feel, instead what they end up feeling is this amount of anger, which is much greater amount of anger compared to earlier. And this is why sometimes people become out of control. This is why sometimes people are full of angry thoughts, or they are constantly feeling angry or sad or guilty, or they're feeling hurt so much in the moment, which in real life does not look like this. In real life, it looks like this. It's much bigger. And this is why sometimes people will get so mad or sad or guilty or hurt over something, a situation, which really should not make them feel that much anger or hurt or guilt. Really what they should be feeling is this much. But the result of not resolving, of not letting go of all of those past experiences in the past, if they're not released, then they always become present in any present situation where there's a feeling of negative emotions present. And please notice that it doesn't matter what the situation is. All that matters is if the feeling is similar. So in this example, it could be not being fed on time as a baby. In this example, it might be arguing with a friend. In this example, it might be being told that they're not good enough in a particular sport. In this, it might be getting a bad grade when they expect to have a good grade. In this, it might be being hired at a job and being mistreated or told that they're doing a bad job when they're doing a great job. This could be a disagreement with a husband or a wife or the kids. It doesn't matter what the situation is. If the negative feeling is similar here as it is to any of here, so in the example, it's anger, then they all come together and they always become present in the present moment, which makes the person feel a negative feeling. This is based on full science, on research, and there's a lot of articles, a lot of science reports, a lot of psychological reports that explain how negative emotions become compact, how they combined over the years. And our job is to help people resolve those negative feelings from their past so they look like this. So they look very minimal. Like this is maybe like a 1 out of 10, right? Or sometimes it's like this, where it's almost completely empty. Like what you said in the last session, which you said you felt nothing, right? This is how it's supposed to be. So in this present moment, when something triggers you to get angry or to get sad or to feel hurt, whether it's the present moment or a thought from the past, the negative emotion should not show up this way. And instead, it should only show up like this. And that is how resolving negative emotions from the past can help us with our present situations. It can help us with improving our mental health, our physical health. This is how it helps us go after the goals that we desire and create the type of life that we want to create. We can create a better life because we're not carrying all of that negative emotion with us. Instead, we just have a little bit. When a person can live life with very little negative emotion inside of them, they have the opportunity to build a great life. But if their negative emotions in their body is not only present, but it's full. Well, just like this cup is very heavy. And even for me, if I hold this cup out straight, I can hold it for maybe 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. But after 1 hour, after 45 minutes, this becomes exhausting. And that is what it's like to carry negative emotions throughout our life. And this is why we have to learn to release those negative emotions and live life like this, where there's very little negative emotions present inside of us.